So, a different topic.
Hey, good evening, Mike.
Good evening, John.
How in the world are you?
Well, I'm freezing a little bit, but other than
Freezing?
that, it's a beautiful evening. Yeah, well, how can you not be freezing and
don't have your heat on right now?
Well, I'm kind of in a bunker. There's only so much heat can do.
Oh.
I mean,
yeah, well, it's nice and toasty here. It's nice here. I can't complain.
Yeah, you're in the ski lodge. I'm in the bunker.
Don't call it ski lodge. My wife would kill me.
Oh, sorry. Your cozy bungalow up in the mountains with the ski lift nearby. Nothing like a ski lodge. Sorry. I guess you don't have like dozens of other people staying with you, so you can't call it a lodge.
No. Yeah. No, it's definitely not. Hey, I wanted to tell you about this. I was going to tell you about this off mic, but since we're here and our show is kind of random anyway, I'll tell you about it now.
Random is good.
Yeah. So I discovered this new video game that looks really, really cool. And I think you and I should play it. It's called
by God, if you say Daddy, Dream Daddy.
No, not Dream Daddy.
Okay.
It's called Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes. Have you heard of it?
Oh yeah. Oh God, that is really fun. Like the VR, and we should play that on our. I don't know if it's a sister channel or it's really your project, Remedy Arcade.
On Remedy Arcade, yeah. So what I had heard about this, but I'd only heard when I heard about it, it was only available in VR. But they've since ported it. It's available on PC and Nintendo Switch and a bunch of other console or a bunch of other platforms. And,
yeah, but how it takes something away if everybody can see the screen.
Yeah, but I mean, you would just have to be diligent, and you just have to be honest about it. That's all. And there's ways to do it, especially with the Switch, because it's handheld. True. One of us could be holding the handheld, and the other person be sitting in front of us reading from the PDF, from the bomb defusal manual. But for anyone who's listening that doesn't know what this is, it's a really cool game. It's a Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes. It's a bomb defusal game. So one person is actually playing the game while the other person is either flipping through the pages of a printed out PDF or looking at a PDF on your screen that has sometimes extremely complicated bomb defusal instructions. And so the person looking at the bomb in the game has to describe certain aspects of the bomb, and then the person with the manual can then walk that the diffuser person through actually diffusing the bomb. Bombs get tougher over time, and obviously, if they all have a timer on them. As far as I know, I think they all have a timer.
They all have a timer.
Once the timer runs out, they explode. Some of them have a certain number of times you can screw up. They're called strikes. Some of them have no strikes, so you strike one time, it blows up. Other times it's like 2 strikes, and then the third time it blows up. But it looks really, really cool. I think everybody should go check it out. Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes is what it's called.
Yeah, it's
I'd really like to get my hands on an HTC Vive. That VR system looks just absolutely amazing.
I've played it with Gear VR, and it is absolutely it's absolutely, what's the word I'm looking for? Where
immersive?
It absorbs you. Immersive. You really sink into it. You're stressed out about it. You're like, you really feel like something bad is going to happen because you're trying to get it done under this time limit, and you're waiting for somebody to feed you some information based on what you just told them, and you're just sitting there like, God, why can't they see this? Oh my God. The serial number, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. And some of these things are, I don't want to downplay the puzzles. I mean, some of these puzzles are pretty intense. There's I don't want to get into describing it really, but it just looks like an enormous amount of fun. It's the person who's reading the PDF is having to do this logic exercise because there's 20 something pages, 23. I got the manual pulled up. It's 23 pages long. And
the puzzles depend on the serial number of the bomb, and depending on the serial number, there may be different physical features that change that within the serial number.
Well, it's not, so and it's not just serial number. So, like for instance, just looking at one of these, one of the puzzles is called On the Subject of Wires, and the serial number is completely irrelevant. It's all about wire counts. So the person looking at the bomb says, okay, I have 4 wires. So the person looking at the PDF is going to flip through this until they find the 4 wire section. And this box is just packed full of text. It's like, if there is more than one red wire and the last digit of the serial number is odd, cut the last red wire.
It's the serial
Otherwise, if the last wire is yellow and there are no red wires, cut the first wire. Otherwise, if there is exactly one blue wire, cut the first wire. Otherwise,
yeah, it's
and it just goes on and on and on. And I mean, not all of these use a serial number is my point, but it's just super cool. And I really I haven't played it yet. I'd really like to play it.
I've played it. My whole family has played it, and it is a super cool game to play. And it's one that's like, you can have as many people as there are sections of that manual to help you get that bomb down, because and it really helps because each bomb can have I think up to like 16 modules or something
11.
like that.
11's the highest
11 modules. Okay, but it's a crazy number of modules to get through within any amount of set time, really.
Yeah, I mean, I saw somebody, I think it was 11 modules in 6 minutes.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
that doesn't sound like a lot until you're actually trying to tell somebody what a module is. And there's like a module that has just symbols on it. And try telling somebody what symbol they're supposed to push, or explaining what symbol you're seeing to somebody else.
Right.
And it is literally insane trying to go through and do this in a efficient way.
Well, I watched a couple hours of somebody play this online today while I was working kind of throughout the day. And what he and the other guy did was they accidentally developed their own shorthand. So when they got to the symbols that you're talking about, they had names for all of them. Because I mean, some of them they have real names like Omega, Lambda, so on.
No, but you develop names based on your interaction with other person. You're like, it's like the guy with his arms held wide,
right,
and things like that.
Yeah, and then by the end of it, you just say the guy, and you know exactly what you're talking about. And these guys, one of these things looks kind of like a squid, so he just started calling it the squid. And every time it came up, they just called it a squid, and they knew they developed their own language. By the end of it, they were breezing through things like the shapes. One of the things I thought looked really neat was there were these kind of timed mechanisms, these timed modules, where it's like a capacitor that was charging, and if it charged all the way up, the bomb would blow. So you had to pull a lever to discharge the capacitor. So that doesn't have, when you're the one that's defusing the bomb, you're having to go over there and hit this lever every like 10 seconds or 15 seconds at the same time as trying to describe a module to your bomb defusal person. The game calls them experts, the person with the PDF. So you're trying to describe to the expert and get instructions from the expert while you're over there also having to release gas from a tank at a certain interval, trip this discharge lever for a capacitor in a certain interval. It just looks like total chaos and a huge amount of fun. I've spent 10 minutes talking about it now, so we're going to move on. But it just looks really fun. And
it is fun, and we can definitely play it. I am definitely down for that. So the planning portion for a whole different series aside.
Yeah, sorry about that. I wasn't intending on talking about Remedy Arcade. I just wanted to share the game thing with you. I didn't know if you'd heard of it.
Yeah, it's I love that game actually. I wish I could play it more. So apparently we're going to be playing it more.
Yeah.
You know what? Talking about digital life. Well, time for a new section, I guess, or a new segment. Choose your topic, John. We can either talk about automation system and security flaws, or quantum networking.
Quantum networking.
Quantum networking it is.
Anything quantum. I love quantum physics and all that stuff. So quantum networking.
All right. Well, on the topic of quantum networking then, are you aware of, well, I'm sure you're aware of quantum computing.
Yeah.
But are you aware that they have started working on quantum networking so that you can communicate using quantum entanglement over vast distances?
I've heard of the idea. Yeah.
So they are working on quantum encryption and
a terrifying prospect, I might add.
Now, why would that be terrifying?
Well, the idea of like quantum encryption sounds great for the people who want to encrypt things. But when we're at the point of the sheer computing power of quantum machines, there are cryptologists out there that think that we will be essentially completely unprotected because quantum, a lot of people probably don't, quantum computing is still in its infancy.
Right.
And people who aren't really up to this who really aren't interested in this kind of thing don't probably even know that it exists. Or if they do, they don't really know how much faster we're talking about when we talk about quantum computers. It's multiple orders of magnitude in computational power increase. I don't know the exact number, but it's huge. I mean, it's huge. And so something like SHA 256 today that is somewhat reliable, or even 1024 or 2048, is calling it trivial to crack that level of encryption with quantum computing is an understatement. It's trivial. It's a blink of an eye. That kind of thing is going to be incredibly easy. So we're going to need things like quantum encryption in order to even have a chance at securing our stuff, our data from attacks originating from quantum computers.
All right. So I used a misnomer when I said quantum encryption, which of course you would think quantum encryption would be encryption based on quantum computing methodologies. What I should have said is quantum key distribution or quantum password transmission, or the ability to agree on a password using the
authentication. You're talking about like at the authentication layer?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, in encryption, you could have standard encryption with this, or, once they do actually make encryption algorithms that are so large that the only viable means of using them are using quantum computing. But regardless, if you have the password or the key to the encryption algorithm that encrypts the data, then that encryption is useless because you can decrypt the data. Assuming, decryptable data. If it's a one-way hash, you don't decrypt it in the first place.
But the data's gone forever.
Let's not get bogged down in the intricacies of encryption in and of itself.
But why, Mike? I want to talk about encryption.
Well, we'll have to dedicate some time on a future cast for encryption then, because I love talking about encryption.
Yeah, it's very cool for sure.
So this is this article from the MIT Technology Review, one of our favorite sources now.
Our only source for the last 3 episodes.
Like I said, one of our favorite sources. I have some other sources this episode though, so we're branching out a bit. But this is not just talking about quantum computing. This is using quantum entanglement and superposition to be able to transmit data without, your traditional transmission lines in between. And you would think that this might be some far off future thing, but apparently there are already networks in place using this technology. In China, from Beijing to Shanghai, there's a network that has 32 trusted nodes to transmit encryption keys over a quantum network.
So let's take a step back here for a second, and we're tossing around a bunch of what do they call them? $10 words.
Okay.
So we're talking about quantum entanglement and superposition, and I feel like we should probably kind of hit on those a little bit.
Yeah, probably.
Now, I'm not a physicist. I dabble in reading about these things. So I'm not at all qualified here. But in quantum physics, when we're talking about particles, you can do this thing with them. I don't know how the mechanism works. But you can take two particles and entangle them in such a way that if you change the energy state of one of them, the other one changes too.
Correct.
Now, that sounds like the kind of situation where, like, obviously, like if you change something that's connected to something else, both of them change. But here's the thing. If you were to take two soup cans and tie them together with a string, and you pull that string really tight and you yell into one of the ends of one of those soup cans, you can kind of sort of pick up that vibration in the other can. The vibration vibrates the can, that vibration travels down the wire or down the string. It gets to the other can, vibrates that can, and transmits the sound. That situation is what it sounds like we're talking about. It is not at all that.
No.
What's happening when two particles are entangled, there's an absolutely instantaneous transmission of data between those particles. There's no travel time. It's not the speed of light. It's not just really fast. There is zero travel time. It is instantaneous.
And we don't know.
The last thing I heard was that this could possibly be across the entire expanse of the universe.
Maybe. We don't know.
Because at this point, there's no the theoretical limit, the theoretical distance between entangled particles for communication to work is infinite. We may learn differently over time, but as we stand today, that is the working hypothesis. So when we talk about entangled particles, that's what we mean. Mike has a particle. I have a particle. They're entangled. I twiddle something on my particle, his particle gets modified. So you can imagine in a data network, if we have, like right now, we do these podcasts over a VoIP call, over a call over the internet. That transmission, we complain all the time about how there's roughly a second delay. So everything Mike hears me saying right now is actually
so when I go to
delayed.
Interrupt him,
if we were using a quantum network,
it always happens a second after he already starts talking. Yeah,
like right now. Now, but if we were on a quantum network, he would actually be getting my data. He would be getting my voice faster than if I were standing next to him. Now let that sink in for a second, because my voice travels at sea level. What is it? Like 670 miles an hour, something like that. Speed of sound at sea level, between 600 and 700 miles an hour. The transmission between two entangled particles is zero speed, or is zero travel time. The time, it's t0. So it's faster than it would be if he were standing in the same room with me. So that's what we're talking about.
Let me go with the superposition part of it then. So the part that's actually transmitted, the data that's actually transmitted, is the superposition of the individual particles. So it's, if you took an atom and then you took that atom apart, most people I would think would know that there's protons, neutrons, and electrons that make up atoms. Mm-hmm. Well, the subparticles of the protons and neutrons,
quarks,
I believe electrons too. Yeah, the quarks can have different directions that they're moving, and the directions, the particular directions can be their positions. So if you're able to quantum entangle two particles, then those subparticles move in like directions. Whether it's always opposite or always the same, their position, or in this case superposition, always follows what the other one's doing, instantaneous, because they're quantum entangled.
Right. So the thing there would be it's essentially like, if you think about it, so some of these particles, when we start talking about quantum computing, they can exist in more than just two states. Right now, computers work on binary. It's either you have bits, which are either 0 off or 1 on or off.
Right.
So if we just take that binary idea, we have an entangled particle, or we have entangled particles, and I make mine a 1, you would get a 1, or you would get a 0. And if you know that you always get a 0 when I get a 1, or in this case, I have up, he has down, or he has down, I have up, then you can easily reverse the order when you receive the transmission, and now you have your data. So that's the weird, like we were talking about the up quarks, down quarks, they don't necessarily have to be exactly corollary.
As long as they always,
and you can still get your data,
end up equaling the same, no matter what their actual position is. Their superposition is always equals the same as what the beginning positions equaled. So if one's up and one's down, but you change the one that's down to up, then the one that was up goes down.
Right.
Now, another interesting part of this is not just that we're able to do that, but that we're able to reliably detect that these positions of subparticles have moved so reliably and so feasibly, I guess you would say, that we can integrate it into a network technology and actually make use of this in a real world application instead of just a theoretical application.
Yeah. So you said that this is happening currently in
China.
In China.
Yes.
Okay.
They have 32 nodes that they can shuttle data between the nodes using quantum networking and using the quantum entangled superposition of particles.
What kind of data are they working with here? Do we know?
Let's see. It says that there's a 2,032 kilometer ground link in between Beijing and Shanghai. It doesn't say the bandwidth or the type of data other than as it applies to key transmission in this particular document.
Okay. Man, that's
but then again, I'm just kind of scanning it real quick.
1,263 miles.
Yeah. Yeah. That is far and beyond what a normal like fiber cable can transmit without the signal being lost.
Wow.
Due to degradation.
That is wild.
Degradation? Yeah, it's
so. Yeah, I haven't.
It's mind-boggling.
I haven't read through this article yet, and this is a pretty lengthy article with lots of sections. So I'm trying to skim through it. Maybe you know the answer to this. I know that when entangling particles is, I'm not going to say easy, but we understand how to do it. It happens in labs all over the place right now. How does that work when we're talking about 1,200 miles? Do we entangle the particle in one lab and then somehow take one of the particles to the other lab? How does that happen? How do we get the particles entangled at that distance?
That's how I understand the process to happen. I don't know if that's actually how the process happens, and it doesn't really delve into that type of minutia in this article. So,
well, I definitely like to know how that works because, if you have to, they can. We have these. I say we. They can do this cool thing where it's extremely strong magnetic fields. Somehow they're able to encase single particles in these heavily shielded containers with these unbelievably strong magnetic fields, and they can store an electron essentially, just like in the air somehow. And it sounds like something out of Ghostbusters, but I've seen that this is being done. So that's what I was wondering, if they're entangling them and then like putting one of these particles in one of these containment fields and then transferring it in a truck or something into another location. I'd like to know how they figured that out, how they're doing that part.
Well, if anybody related to this China project hears this and would like to give us a behind the scenes look at this and talk to us about it,
we will pay you $25 to be on our show.
We will pay you $25
American.
It's a USD. It's a grand proposition, and of course that's after you are able to fly us out to China and give us a behind the scenes look and then fly us back. That part of it will have to be on you, unfortunately, but we will pay you $25 for it.
Absolutely. Unquestionably.
I don't know if we're going to get any guests, John.
Yeah. I don't think we are. Not at that package.
No.
This is really cool. I'm scrolling through this. There's this whole section in here about quantum teleportation and how it works. And there's a really cool infographic.
Yeah, it actually does a really good job of going over some quantum basics to really explain what they're talking about as far as quantum communication and how it's obtained, or how it's accomplished.
Yeah. We haven't really talked much about quantum computing up to this point, and I know it's come up a couple of times. We talked about the Matryoshka brain. We've talked a lot about AI. I'm curious how to see. I'm curious to see how AI shakes out over the next decade, because we seem to be making pretty rapid advancements in the realm of quantum computing. I mean, we have a working quantum network right now, and so it seems to me that AI, that like an actually conscious machine, is probably not that far off. If we can't get to it with silicon, with silicon chips, my 4 gigahertz Intel chip can't become conscious. It seems like we probably can with quantum computing, because it's seemingly limitless processing power.
Well,
that'll be pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting nonetheless. Whether that will enable us to get into full self-aware AI, or it's just another stepping stone.
Right.
Regardless, the quantum realm in terms of computing and networking is a very, very interesting topic.
Well, I sent you this article earlier in the week, or sometime in the last few days, that I don't really want to get into it too much right now. But in the realm of AI, a company that is making really great strides in AI research called OpenAI.
I saw a couple things on that too.
Yeah. They've been working on a lot of different things, but in fact, we talked about one of them. One of their OpenAI project played Dota, a video game, and got unbelievably good at it. And
that's the same
to my knowledge,
company.
has yet to be beaten. Yeah, same company. They use their OpenAI software to generate text, like generating a news article or a book, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And the last round was so good, they said it was too dangerous to release.
Yeah.
And of course that made me click the article. So
of course
I start reading it, and it was, just utterly fascinating that there's some examples. And this is why I didn't want to talk about it, because I don't have the source immediately. And so linking to it may be a challenge, but the gist of this was that they created this thing that generates text, and it's so insightful. And it's incredible. It sounds like like a professional author is writing this stuff,
which is dangerous, because then you can turn it around and face it towards things like customer reviews or video comments or anything like that has an impact on a real world.
OpenAI's concern was media.
Yeah, media.
They don't want to just release this thing out to developers and then developers go and have it create false news reports about anything. This thing is capable of writing a perfectly coherent news article, complete with evidence about, like, citing sources as evidence and creating those sources itself, to lie about anything. It could be talking about us being visited by aliens, and it could go and it created a book. Well, I'm going to get the numbers wrong. I don't want to misquote it, but there was something it did. It wrote this huge piece of text in 15 seconds. And it was something that, it takes a normal human. I type anywhere between 115 and 130 words per minute. There's no way I could write a book in 15 seconds. So, and I type pretty fast. That's pretty fast. It's 15 seconds to output a huge amount of text is a huge amount of perfectly readable, entirely coherent
nothing like
text.
the spam emails you get where you're like,
no,
wait, that looks a little bit weird. That doesn't look like correct punctuation, or that word isn't spelled right. No,
right.
This is like all legitimate text.
It's I mean it's just incredible. And so if it can output this amount of text in 15 seconds, it could easily create a whole bunch of articles that prove its point, and then create a core article that cites all of those other articles as evidence. And
so it can troll to a dangerous level. They're also worried that like marketplaces could just collapse because false products could be put out there, and then thousands of reviews, positive reviews, be written that can't even be determined that they're false because the text is so well written that all of a sudden a product becomes falsely popular. Like it looks like thousands of people have bought it and nobody's bought it, and it's just a scam product. And
I mean, we have that problem now with just what do they call them, like click shops, where I mean, you can find these videos online of these guys, these people that run their business is to just click ads. And so they set up these huge matrices of mobile devices, tablets and phones and laptops, and they have just a group of people sitting in front of, they may get 10 people sitting in front of 700 iPhones, and all they do is tap the screens. They tap ads, and they just move from left to right. And if we're willing to mobilize human beings to do that kind of thing, we're definitely willing to mobilize machines.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, we could talk about that a lot more. We're talking about AI, so it made me think about the text generator thing in OpenAI.
No, that was a great,
really cool.
A great different topic all of a sudden. I had meant to put that in our list of topics for this week. Not that I think we're even going to be able to get to all of them, but that was a eye-opening article, and I was just able to skim it, and I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
So, that's...
I think we should probably take this opportunity to line our pockets.
Yeah, talking about ads, I think we should line our pockets a little bit, so... And if you didn't hear anything other than what I just said about lining our pockets, we didn't have an ad. But if you did hear something, thank you for listening to our ad.
Yeah, welcome back. Welcome back to a different topic.
So anyways, a different topic. You know what? I feel kind of dirty after doing the whole ad thing.
You need to hop in.
I think it's time to scrub down.
Hop in the shower. Get all sudsy.
Yeah, Let's get a shower thought going.
Make sure you've got a no-slip mat down.
yeah. This is a slippery one too. Okay, so I was in the shower the other day listening to the radio, as I sometimes do in the shower. Well, not radio, it's a playlist. Anyways, there's music playing, and just it popped in my head. Evolution. When a new mutation presents itself, one of the founding ideas of evolution, a change in a species, presents itself, and it's so radical to give that one member of the species an advantage over the entire rest of its species. How in the heck does that one change propagate itself if it's only one member of the species, and then that species mates with another member of the species? assuming sexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction would not have this problem, of course. But how does it ensure that? How is any mutation even move forward in a species if their only choice is to mate with somebody else in the species that doesn't have that?
Well, so
that gene?
it sounds like that to me. That sounds like there may be a little bit of a misconception of what we talk about when we talk about beneficial mutations.
Okay.
It's pretty rare for there to be a mutation, a beneficial mutation that is extremely different than the current like crowd of creatures in that species.
Okay. Even if it's not extremely different though, even if it's just a minor difference and it doesn't affect the attractiveness of this particular member of the species to be mated with. Say they still have no trouble mating, even then. So
Darwin's idea was is commonly referred to as survival of the fittest. And that's not really right. It's more like survival of the fit enough. And so what tends to happen is that if you're 0.5% better at something that is relevant to your survival or relevant to the propagation of your genetics, you're going to be 1% better at that than the rest of your species. 1% when we're talking about species that have thousands or hundreds of thousands or hundreds of billions or hundreds of quintillions, if we're talking about bacteria, of fellow creatures to mate with. I lost my train of thought. Let me back up for a second.
Okay.
I started trying to come up with quintillion and it made me lose I'm super tired. I have to tell you, I am exhausted. I'm going on 3 nights where I'm getting about 4 hours of sleep and I'm just having a difficult time getting sleep and I don't really know why. So I'm a little slow on the uptake tonight. I apologize. So
numbers, man, they're hard.
So what I'm saying is that, when you have, let's just say, there's 25,000 bonobos.
Okay.
Okay. And one of those bonobos is some new bonobo is born that has better hearing, has 1% or even 0.5% better hearing than its brother that's born right around the same time. And a predator comes up. I don't know if now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know if bonobos have any natural predators, but let's just say that they do. So you've got 2 bonobo brothers. One of them has 0.5% better hearing and a predator is approaching. The one that has that 0.5% better hearing is going to get up in the tree before the other one does. It's much more, I say much more, it's 0.5% more likely to survive the attack from that predator. If it does, so let's just play that out. The 0.5% worse hearing bonobo dies to this predator and never gets the opportunity to procreate. And the one with the 0.5% better hearing survived that attack and therefore has the opportunity to spread its genetics. So that's how that ends up happening there. We're not talking about any kind of changes that are hugely dramatic, because typically when that kind of stuff happens, it's non-beneficial. Genetic disorders that cause you to be an invalid, that you can't move around on your own, you can't use the bathroom on your own. If that happens out in the wild, where there aren't doctors in wheelchairs and that kind of thing, you're going to die. You're not gonna, if you don't have a village to take care of you, you're dead. I mean, you're gonna get taken by whatever predator is relevant.
I'm not sure it's the concept of the one with the advantage will survive that's tripping me up. That makes sense to me. That's almost common sense to me. I mean, Of course, the one with the slight advantage is going to have better time, easier time surviving than the one without the advantage. That's why it's called an advantage.
Yeah.
But what really kind of puts me in awe is that when the one that has the better chance of survival mates, then that genetic materials pass forward. There's only like a 50% chance that mutation,
that trait
will
passes.
actually be passed. Yeah, that trait passes.
Sure.
And yet somehow it doesn't just kind of die off, and because one member of the species has it. I guess it also depends on how many offspring a species might be capable of, and say the one bonobo mates 50 times in its life. I don't know the mating patterns of bonobos, but say there's offspring. So, okay, I think in talking about it, I kind of understand more. It was just, it hit me. I had never thought about it.
Right.
But it's like, yeah,
Well,
how does that genetic material, how is there any kind of guarantee that that trait doesn't just...
Yeah, there is no guarantee. And, you kind of have to think about it, and it is a numbers game. You've got a huge population of, this planet is just absolutely overrun with life. Is that some form of life is everywhere. And, something like bacteria that can replicate extremely rapidly and doesn't have to get bogged down in things like hunting for a mate and, preening before a possible mate.
Asexual
yeah, exactly.
prawn that just clones itself over and over again.
Call back to episode 4. I don't know. We've done enough episodes now where I don't know what's what.
It was in a previous episode though.
Check out our crayfish clones episode.
Yeah.
You could very well have extremely beneficial traits that have just failed to pass on. And that happens everywhere. But another thing to remember too, not every beneficial trait not every beneficial genetic mutation is purely beneficial. There's I don't know the name of it. I wasn't prepared to have this conversation. Because, it's a different topic. I didn't know that we were going to come here. So, there are humans today alive, human adults today that live today that can see further into the red spectrum than your typical human being. Now, that sounds pretty cool. Those people can see reds that other people can't see. You go far enough into the red, you're talking about infrared, which is the kind of stuff that your television remote uses to communicate. Now, I'm not saying that there are people who can see infrared, but
that would be cool though.
That would be terrifying because there's so much infrared light coming down from the sun.
Oh my God.
You might be blind.
Yeah, that would be terrifying.
But so it sounds neat that there are people with essentially superhuman sight. They can see more color spectrum than you and I can. But something that's common with this particular mutation is hypersensitivity to light, skin disorders like dry skin, eczema.
Oh, that sucks.
And some similar things.
So you're superhuman, but then
acne,
you have,
I think, is one of them.
Super weaknesses too. That's great.
Yeah, and so that same mutation is it has happened several times. So I'm talking about this for a couple of reasons. One is, you're talking about this. We mentioned the bonobo that has the 0.5% better hearing. That 0.5% is actually probably a pretty big number. Come to think of it, it's probably typically much smaller than that. But it was just an example. That mutation would seem to happen not to just that one bonobo. And we have this happening here where these human males or human adults, males, human adults are not related we're all related, but not closely related, and yet they have the same mutation.
So we see the mutation unrelatedly happen across a species at the same time. Yeah.
Right. So that kind of helps with the numbers. And if hearing kind of sort of gets 0.5% better by nature of the genes that we already have, the genes kind of may be prone to certain mutations. And, so you're prone to have your hearing get better, or you're prone to have congenital heart defects and your heart craps out on you when you're 4 and you die.
Yay.
So,
super upbeat episode tonight. Yay. Well,
I'm just trying to illustrate a point that not all mutations are helpful, that some mutations will kill you and miserably.
And if you want to know more about the crayfish that we were talking about, not prawns, it's crayfish. And it was episode 5 we talked about that. And that was a mutation that is seemingly very beneficial for that population, but maybe not so beneficial for anything around that population, and possibly not beneficial for that population either because of long-term overpopulation. But that's a whole discussion that we had back in episode 5. But, while we're on the thought of evolution and genes and things like that, let's hit a different topic.
Okay.
So apparently, first, are you familiar with CRISPR?
CRISPR. Is that the... I'm just going to say no.
I feel you getting there.
I've heard of it.
Okay.
Because I remember thinking, I think it has something to do with gene editing because it, is that right?
Exactly. It's the open source gene editing.
So this is why I remember this. So I think about CRISPR as being one of the drawers in my fridge.
Okay.
Right? Because you have like there's a CRISPR.
Yeah.
So I remember thinking, that's funny. What a funny name for a gene editing tool, because I keep lettuce in my CRISPR.
Oh, wow.
Anyway,
that's
I'm not very familiar with CRISPR. I know it has something to do with gene editing, so educate me here. Well,
I really don't know how it works or details about CRISPR so much.
Oh, great.
But I did come across a article in Nature Medicine journal. It's a Nature Medicine journal. Anyways.
Ooh.
So yeah. We are totally on it tonight. But so I came across this article, and apparently, now granted, in order to read the entire article, I'd have to pay money to do that, and I don't have much money to pay to do that. So I'm kind of having to go off the abstract, which isn't usually the best way to take in information from journal articles. But the abstract of this article says that there's a long-term evaluation of a certain type of CRISPR gene editing that affects, and I'm probably pronouncing this wrong, but Duchenne muscular dystrophy, which is
is that DMD? I've heard of DMD.
Yes, DMD.
Okay.
Now, this is DMD as it's presenting in mice, so maybe not directly transferable to human test cases, but apparently with some sort of therapy involving CRISPR, a CRISPR encoded virus that can be introduced into these mice, there is an improvement to this DMD disorder that they have bred into this population of mice. for this scientific study. So, which is really cool on one level, but really scary to me on another level, because muscular dystrophy is completely like an inherited thing. It's something that you're predisposed to on a genetic level, not because of, a virus that you catch or something that you did in your childhood or adulthood, that like you tripped over something and landed wrong and I have muscular dystrophy.
Right.
It's a disorder that you're basically born with and it presents, and then you live with it, and you can deteriorate. You might not deteriorate, but to date there wasn't any way to like stop it or cure it. But now maybe there is. But this means that instead of editing genetics through like embryos, this is proof of a virus that can go in and edit your genetics because somebody has told it to do so. Which is scary.
But it's also very cool.
Yes, it is very cool.
And I don't really know what else to say about it. That's just really cool. I think these treatments.
I mean, this could be how we break to a new level of longevity and lifespans. It could be how we break into a new level of abundance, of being able to cure diseases and disorders that we've never been able to touch before.
Mm-hmm.
And that side of it's great. But this could also be how we introduce a virus into a population that cuts their lifespan into a quarter.
Right. Well, I mean, what scares me about gene editing is possibly not fully understanding the gene that you're editing. Maybe that gene is responsible for more than you think it is. And right. You go and you snip it out of the amino acid strain. What am I trying to say?
Out of the DNA strand?
Yeah, you go snip it out of the strand, and now all of a sudden the person, they might not be born with muscular dystrophy, but now they don't have eyes.
I mean, this would be something from what I gather, it would be something where the mice were already born. They were already developed.
Yeah.
And then the symptoms got better because they got introduced to this. Now, I may be misreading this, but that's what I understand from the abstract of this article. And again, this is a textbook example of why you do not want to take an abstract of an article and try and say that exactly what's going on in it.
Yeah, this abstract is like one long paragraph.
Yeah, that's all it is.
It's one good paragraph. I'd say like 28% of it is probably acronyms.
Yeah, absolutely.
DMD is a monogenic disorder and a candidate for therapeutic genome editing.
Yeah.
Like, these are all those $10 words I was talking. It's just a bunch of $10 words strung together.
So take what I've presented with a large grain of salt, because I cannot profess from this one paragraph that I know everything about this. Then again, I'm also not going to go out and buy this article so that I can read it, because I also likely would not understand 2/3 of the article without a class in genetic engineering or just genetics in general. But
yeah, something that's kind of cool. I've never seen. I didn't know nature did this. So you said it's Nature Medicine. It's at nature.com. So this is associated with just the parent production,
right,
or the parent publication, Nature. You can rent a white paper for $9. So, I mean, I'm not suggesting we do that on this, but if we were to get something that's a little more in line with our actual level or areas of
yeah, I'm not
something
saying
a
that
little
it
more in
costs
line
a
with our
whole lot for me
actual
to
areas
read
of
it.
expertise, then it might be worth it. But it's actually kind of cool. I'm flipping through it. You can see the entire paper. It's just blurred.
Right.
It makes me wonder if there might be a way to unblur this.
To view the PDF, download here.
View page source.
And that was a ad embedded into. Oh, that is so aggravating. Anyways, that's a whole different topic. Hey, we're getting better on staying on track, though. That's great.
That is great. I also feel like I've only been here about 15 minutes, and we have crossed the hour mark.
Wow, this is why I love talking to you, John, because we get into these topics and we just talk, and it's great. Oh,
yeah, this is this is neat. I want to look more into this muscular dystrophy thing.
So now that we've had a chance to talk to it, all of a sudden I got the flash in my head of what's that game and movie with the Umbrella Corporation?
Resident Evil.
Yeah, Resident Evil. So this is just giving me flashes of Resident Evil. This is I always say that the zombie epidemic is impossible because science, and now maybe
hang on
not.
Yeah, hang on now. Did you hear about the deers? Or the deer?
The deer?
Yeah. So the first articles that I saw come out about this we're saying that there's a zombie disease spreading amongst deer populations.
Oh, is this flesh-eating deer?
Well, so what's happening is some deer are getting this disease that it's a wasting disease. They stop eating, they get despondent, they seem disoriented, and they kind of wobble and shamble around, and they drool and foam at the mouth. But they don't eat, so they just starve to death. And so when you see one of these deer that is in the advanced stages of this disease that's spreading, they look like zombie deer. Their color is poor. Their ribs are showing. Their bones are weird. They're slobbering. A lot of the traits that you typically see for a zombie in a zombie movie.
Right.
But they don't seem to be cannibalizing each other. They're just not eating. It's a wasting disease. So I fell prey to some clickbait for sure, because it was like zombie deer coming for your homes and hide your children, Yeah, I was in a conversation with a friend of mine about this, and he pointed me to a conversation that happened among some epidemiologists, saying that it's possible that we could see transference from these deers to humans with this particular disease,
right?
And because obviously we eat deer, that's a pretty common meat for people to consume. And so a lot of these hunters, probably the majority of hunters, are going to go out into their hunting areas. They're going to find a deer, they're going to shoot it, they're going to chop it up, and they're going to eat it, not realizing that it had this wasting disease. Because most of the deer aren't actually living long enough to show all of the symptoms of this disease, where they're actually shambling about and drooling and super thin. They usually don't live that long. So a deer or a hunter that's out there, you may very well see a deer that isn't moving and shoot it and eat it and consume this disease as a result. If it continues to mutate, it's possible that this could transfer into the human population, and it would essentially be another or a wasting disease that makes its way over to humans.
Apparently it's already in reindeer and moose in Norway.
Okay.
But this disease sounds more like rabies than zombieism to me.
Yeah, it's not zombie. I mean,
yeah.
it's clearly not. But the first couple of articles that I saw pop up, because I see clickbait articles come up and I just ignore them. I refuse to click on them if they're like, top 5 zombie deer. The 4th one will blow your mind or whatever. I hate that stuff. So I don't click them at all. But I started seeing more and more news outlets pick up this zombie deer thing. And so I got curious because there is actually a zombie fungus. That takes over ants, and the ant is effectively dead. And somehow or another, this fungus can take over its brain or its
I don't know
body and move it around.
Dead. There's some that like do mind control. And
the fungus controls the ant
and raise itself so that it's more likely to get eaten. And then there's one that has the ant go up above the colony, and then it sprouts and spreads spores all over the other ants. And there's a couple of them out there that do weird things. Yeah, one of them's a fungus, one of them's a parasite.
Sure.
So I mean, two different things.
These things exist that kind of take over your. I keep trying to say nervous system. It's not really
cats have that thing where they enslave the human race with an amoeba. That's the only reason there's cat people. I mean,
right? Cat
people are basically zombies.
Okay.
And now we've entered the conspiracy theory portion of a different topic. Oh, that's something we might want to add is a weekly conspiracy.
Maybe. I don't
if we could find them.
I don't want to spread false stuff.
Well, maybe not to spread false stuff. Maybe just to pick it apart and examine why a conspiracy, maybe one that's just so obviously not true, is so widely believed, like flat Earth or I don't know, moon landing, or I don't know.
Well, I should take you said flat Earth. I should take this opportunity to invite all of you to come to the No Earth Society.
The No Earth Society.
Yeah, we have a subreddit. It exists. You can go there and learn about how the Earth was destroyed. There is no Earth. The flat earthers have it wrong.
The flat earthers are stupid. Of course, there's not an Earth. Psh. Well, I mean, all of that is for naught because, as we have established well on this show, I am the only one who exists. Everything else is for purely my not so much amusement as, mental sustenance, I guess.
Right. I don't have a response to that because
you can't disprove it.
That's meaningless. It's meaningless.
I mean, I can't prove it either. So
yeah, don't get me started on that.
I just for this show, I'm saying we've established it. Just I guess verbally. Just that's within this show at least. Within Remedy Arcade, it's your world. Within this show, it's my world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at just real quick. I'm looking at this infographic.
Which in
Mercury has had zero deaths, and exists. Venus, 0 deaths, exists. Earth, 120,315,672,896 or more deaths, does not exist.
Or just deaths.
Mars, 0 deaths, exists. Is this a coincidence? I think not.
That's
I love this stuff. The No Earth Society is where it's at. Forget the flat earthers.
I will have to check that out. Well, on that note, I think we're both going to go get some well-deserved rest before we start gearing up.
Here's hoping
for some more topic discussion. What?
I said, here's hoping. I mentioned earlier, I've been getting very little sleep in the last few nighs. So I am going to try my hardest to have a relaxing sleep.
A relaxing 45 minutes of sleep.
I hope it's more than that, but yes.
All right. Well, this was a different topic. I hope to see you all again another day.
Yep.
Yep.
All right. Thanks for listening, guys. Yeah, have a good one. Bye.
Bye.